Hi and welcome to TechNote. I'm close to running out of storage space, so I decided to get myself a Synology DS1515 Plus for Christmas. And I'm gonna hook it up with 5 6TB VD-RAID drives. Stay tuned. So let's check out what's in the box. Well, on the top we have a box. I'm just going to put that aside for the moment. And we're going to try to get the unit itself out of it. So we're going to put this to the side. And in true unboxing style, we start out with the boring stuff. We've got a power cord, European one. We've got some kind of keys, I think. A lot of screws. A network cable, which is nice because I actually haven't bought one. And actually there are 2 network cables. On top of the box we have a getting started guide. Then we try to remove the protective plastic. We should have the unit itself. There we go, didn't ding it up too badly, I hope. So I have to flip it over. Just a piece of tape holding it all together. On the front of the device, we've got a status LED, alert LED, power button, and 4 lights to indicate our network connectivity. And we got, of course, the 3.5 SATA base, which we will populate in just a moment. So on the back, we've got a power connector, 2 80mm fans, 4 USB 3.0 ports, we've got 4 gigabit Ethernet connections, 2 eSATA connectors, and a Kensington security slot. To release a hard drive bay, simply push on the lower part and slide it out. I used the tool, but it's completely unnecessary because it's unlocked by default. If you're installing a 3.5-inch drive, there is no need for tools. These are only for the 2.5-inch drives. Start by removing the plastic pieces with the pins. Put the hard drive in its place. And reattach the plastic thingies. To put the hard drive back into the device, simply slide it back in and push to lock. The device has now been hooked up. I used the 2 included network cables and the included power cable. I should say that the noise isn't all that bad. For something that you put in your closet, it will be fine. However, I wouldn't like to sleep next to it. So, to get started, what you want to do is open up your favorite browser. Go to diskstation, port 5000, and you should find a welcome page. As you can see, there are not a lot of options on this page, so we're going to go ahead and hit the setup button. As you can see, we're first going to have to install the diskstation manager. To do this, we're going to hit install now. This will tell us that all the data on the disk will be removed. I don't have a problem with that, so I'll check the box and click OK. The installation will now start. Once again, there's not a lot of options to do this, so we're gonna hit the next button. First thing that we're gonna need to do is create an administrator account. I'm gonna give the server a name. I'm just gonna call it DS1515. I'm gonna use the username Martin, because that is my name after all. And I'm gonna enter a password. Do I want to share the network location of my disk station with Synology? I actually do not. This will make it easier to find the NAS. However, I'm fairly certain that with my network configuration I will be able to find it just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that box and click next. We're going to have to specify the DSM update settings. So I'm going to go for the automatic option because I want this to be up to date as much of the time as possible. Where I'm not going to patch it every day, I'm just going to go for, whoops, see if I can check it all. I'm going to go for Sundays at 4 o'clock, which is the time where I will likely be sleeping. So, go ahead and click next. Quick Connect is an easy way to access the Synology device from outside your network. I actually have a Quick Connect ID already. However, I will not be using that for this NAS because I want to have control of things, and I'm actually not quite sure how this works because it doesn't require any port forwarding to my knowledge. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip that step. I'm gonna have to set up port forwarding, yeah, I'm aware of that. But I'm fine with that because I want full control of everything. Do I want to set anonymous statistics? Actually I do not. So we're gonna hit go, and this should take us to the administrator interface. The first thing that will happen is that you will be getting a tutorial. I have to open the menu. I think that if I click outside of it, it will close. And I do not want the help to be displayed at every login because I think we can figure this out on our own. So just gonna go ahead and close the help. As you can see, the system health is good, which is something that I would expect from a perfectly new device. It looks like the control panel has something that it wants to tell us, so we're going to go ahead and open that up. I'm going to want us to go to update and restore. It looks like it is checking for the latest update for the diskstation manager. There is an update available, so I'm just going to go ahead and apply that real quickly, and we'll get on with it. And the update has completed, and now the first tricky task comes. You have to enter your password that is specified just a few moments ago. So, we're gonna see if I typed it in correctly. Looks like I did, good for us. We would have to do some kind of a recovery operation, the first thing that we did. We're gonna close that so we get a better view. We can leave the system health there, it looks good anyways. The first thing that I want to do is configure the network cards, because as I said before, I plugged in both of the network cables. As today, I think that these will have two different IP addresses and won't be used to actually give more bandwidth to the NAS itself. So I should configure link aggregation. So to do this, I think that I'm gonna go into the control panel. We have a network icon here, so that looks promising. I'm gonna go to network interface and create a bond. As you can see, there are some different options here depending on what kind of hardware you have. I actually do have support for the 802.3AD dynamic link aggregation, but since I don't really want to set up my switch right now, I'm just gonna go for the adaptive load balancing. I'm gonna select the two LAN server connection. You can of course do this with all 4 LAN adapters, but I think that 2000 megabits will be just fine. You can select to get the configuration from your DHCP, which is what I'm going to use for the moment when I set up all the port configuration and stuff like that later on, which will likely not be part of this video. I'm probably going to give it a static IP address, because if this changes, of course, you have to change your port configuration as well. But we're going to just go ahead and click next. and wait for it to apply the settings. The page has refreshed, and we're going to get back into the control panel. If we open up network interface again, we'll see that LAN 1 and 2 has disappeared and turned into bond 1. So at least in theory we now have 2000 megabits. If one of the links go down, which is very unlikely because they are both connected to the same switch, the other one will take over. So the network configuration is pretty much completed at this point. One of the main advantages of the Synology DiskStation DS1515 is that it's completely compatible with Active Directory. Since I already have an Active Directory domain, of course I want to use that to manage my shares. So I'm going to go ahead and join the NAS to the domain. To do this, I'm going to open up domain LDAP. I'm going to check the box to join domain. Enter my domain information. Key.local is the name of my local domain. The DNS server is at 192.168.1.200, and that should be all that we need to fill in. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. We get prompted for name and password, so I'm going to enter the administrator credentials. As you can see, the network service will restart when these settings are applied, so we'll likely get another refresh of the page when this is done. It looks like we were joined to the domain just fine, so we should be able to find some domain groups, for instance. As you can see, this is a lab domain, so there are a lot of groups here that I don't use, but I actually have created one group prior to making this video, which will give us access to a share later on. As you can see, it finds it without any problems. But before we can create a share, of course we need to set up the disk configuration. So we're actually gonna close the control panel. I don't want to drag any applications, so I'm going to open the storage manager. As you can see, we have 5 unused disks, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new volume. Since I will be using Synology's hybrid RAID, I will use the quick option. I will not be using all disks, however. You will see why in just a moment. I'm going to uncheck the last disk. I'm going to get another warning that the data on the disk will be erased. These are completely new drives, so I won't bother with that. And I'm going to select to have one disk fault tolerance. This might seem stupid, but when you see what I'm going to do, you will understand why. We can do a hard disk check. I'm actually not going to do this because then this video will have to wait until tomorrow, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to hit next once again. We can see that the capacity will be 16.36 terabytes. Sounds like it should be enough, so we can apply that. Since I currently have no idea how long this is actually going to take, I'm going to proceed with adding the hot spare, which is what I'm going to use the last disk for. So we're going to go into hot spare, select manage, select the volume 1, which of course the only one that I have, and select the last remaining disk. All data on the hot spare disk will be erased. I'm aware of that and I'm fine with it. So we're going to wait for that to save. And I'm going to show you real quickly what this means. Basically, oh, it has finished completing. That's great. And it's optimizing currently. Basically, what this means is that I have 4 disks. If one goes down, I don't lose any data. And the 5th disk will automatically be added to the array. Next, of course, we want to create a share so that we can save something to the NAS. To do this, we're going to head into the control panel again. I'm just going to switch to the advanced mode so that you can actually see all kinds of settings that are in here. We're going to go into the security settings in just a bit, but the first thing that I want to do is create a share folder. And one of the reasons that I got this NAS was because I was running out of space for the YouTube videos themselves, or the Adobe Premiere projects were taking up a lot of space, and it's data that I really don't want to lose in case some video is for some reason deleted from YouTube. So we're gonna go ahead and create a share for just that. We're gonna call it TechNut, if I can spell it correctly. I will not be entering a description because I pretty much know what that is. And if you're familiar with Windows servers and file sharing, you will recognize these options. This is basically creating a hidden share, if you would like that. Hiding subfolders is what would in Windows terms be called access-based enumeration. You can enable the recycle bin. I'm actually not going to do that. And we can configure encryption, which from what I understand this device does really well. However, since this is not really sensitive material, at least from my point of view, I'm not going to enable that. So I'm just going to click OK. And we'll get into the permissions. I won't be assigning any more privileges to admin or guest accounts. Instead, I will select my domain group, which I showed you just a few seconds ago. It's called DS1515, so I know what device it is on. As you can see, it's called TechNut RW for read-write. So I'm going to give that read-write permissions. Under Advanced, we can specify some more settings. I'm not going to be doing that. We have NFS permissions, but I don't use that, so we can't set anything there. We can enable file indexing, but I don't think that's necessary, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now, at least in theory, I should be able to access this shared folder from my desktop. So we're going to give it a try. As you can see, there's our folder. Completely empty at this time. We'll show you a transfer test a little bit later on. I'm just going to go through the rest of the features before we do that. So we're heading back to the disk station. So of course, since this NAS has some pretty serious power, there are a lot of applications that can be installed on it. I have my server for this, so I won't actually be installing any applications. I will say that I have agreed to the terms without even reading them. That's nice of them. And we can just check out some of the recommended applications in the package center if we get something to show up. Okay, so apparently there were no recommended applications. However, as you can see, there are antivirus software, BitTorrent Sync if you're using that, some CloudStation software that I'm not really sure what they do. You can install a DNS server, content management systems. One thing that a lot of people would probably like is you can just install Plex on this machine. So it's a Logic Media server, mail server, well, pretty much anything. If you don't have a server, I could see this coming in really handy, but since the server that I use has more power to use for these kind of stuff, I won't be installing anything, at least not for now. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and check out the Security Advisor. And the first thing that you will need to specify is this for home or work and business? And this is of course for home. And what we'll do is we'll scan for unsafe passwords, malware, all that stuff. I would be really surprised if we find any malware on the empty drives, but who knows. Basically, this will make sure that you haven't set up anything that might cause security issues. So we're going to see how I did. And everything came back good. So, looks like we did pretty well. We can go into details of the results. You can see that email notifications are not enabled. It's something that I'm going to show you in just a bit. And if you go into advanced, you can of course change to the work and business. You can view the checklist and see what it actually looks for, which from what I understand is a lot of rules that no other system files have been modified, that auto block is enabled and stuff like that, so you don't get brute forced or anything like that. And it also says that it will scan every Sunday at 05:56, so that sounds good to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. One thing that I want to be aware of is that if a disk fails or something else goes wrong with the system, I want to know as soon as possible so that I can do something about it in case my data isn't safe anymore. So what I'm gonna do is configure some kind of notifications. And the question is, where do I do that? Notification sounds like a good thing. So we can just use email. So I'm gonna enter I'm just gonna enter an email address here, martin@technut.se, which should actually be working address considering that the exchange video that we're working on is almost done. The prefix NAS error. I'm gonna go ahead and use Outlook for this. As you can see, if you specify your username and password, you should be able to use your ordinary Outlook or Hotmail or whatever email address you have to send these emails without having to use the custom SMTP server if you don't have one. I'm actually not going to go into that because we can pretty much see what it's going to do on the other pages. You can also set up SMS, but since I have email push on my phone, I'm actually not going to bother with that. You can also use a push service from Synology. Not sure what all that is all about, but I think that should be fine. And here you can actually see what kind of events that will trigger emails. So there could potentially be a lot of emails, but I think that, I mean, if you find something that you don't really find interesting or that it's currently spamming you, you should be able to find it right here and just uncheck it, and you wouldn't be bothered by it anymore. So, is there anything else that I should show you? Changes are not saved. Yes, I'm sure I don't want to save them. We have backup and replication, of course. Can be used to send your backups to various places. So you should basically be able to send your backup to another location. So we can select the data backup. As you can see, you can back it up to an external disk if you have that connected. You can use network backup destination, or you can use a public cloud backup destination, which isn't just OneDrive and stuff like that. You can actually back this up to Microsoft Azure if you have it. I actually have MSDN subscription, so I might configure that for my more sensitive files like my vacation images and stuff like that I would be really sad if I lost them. So we have pretty much made a pretty standard configuration, I would say. We looked at a couple of features, and of course now everybody's wondering what kind of read-write speeds that I get to and from my server. So I managed to find a big ass file, and we're gonna see what kind of transfer speeds we get to the NAS. The write speed should of course be slower than the read speeds, but we're gonna test it both ways. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paste it. So I'm gonna need to appear in the background. As you can see, we get a very steady 112 megabytes per second, which is, well, pretty much exactly what I would have expected. So, as you can see, we have a local folder and a network folder, and we're going to try to transfer the file back to my computer. And we get pretty much identical speeds, which tells me that the network is the limiting factor here. Since I only have one network cable going from my switch to my personal computer and only have one network interface, this is the best that we're gonna get. But we should, if I configure link aggregation on the server as well, I should probably be able to get some higher speeds, especially when reading. And that concludes our video on the DS1515 Plus. We're showing you how to set it up and get started, and hopefully you found it useful. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe.